Hello everyone and welcome back to Always Watching. So today we are discussing The Boys Season 4 Episode 1. Our favorite psychopathic monster is back, Homelander, and he is worse than ever. Knowing that this is the season before last makes it even more exciting because I had a fear that this show might outstay its welcome, but thankfully this will not be the case. The episode starts off and boy is it lonely at the top. Homelander has spent the past few seasons literally clawing his way to the top of Vought Enterprises, only to come to the realization that it just wasn't worth it. And on top of that, he's getting old. The episode begins and ends with this trial. I'm glad they didn't drag this trial out for too long, and I think one of the things I love about this show is they know when to leave a room. However, this trial is essentially a means to an end for Homelander's first step to formally take over the world. He's tired of Vought. He wants to move on to better things. This season will feature Victoria a lot more now that she's a vice presidential candidate. And although she got rid of Stanley, she still has to deal with Homelander. And we find out this episode that her, along with everybody else, is working on a magic drug or magic potion that will hopefully kill Homelander. But until then, they have to tolerate his crazy behind. Victoria, like Homelander, has a daughter that is a soup. However, the difference is Homelander's son was born a soup. Victoria turned her daughter into a monster. And I think, ironically, this will actually make her less safe. We also see that Ryan has gotten a lot more mature. And watching him with his father, it's very clear that he hasn't become this power-hungry beast Homelander desperately wants him to become. And one of my favorite scenes is when Homelander is sitting there with his milk, celebrating the riots as if it's a glass of whiskey. And he's looking at his son like, "You're not happy?" And his son, although he's a lot younger, is far more mature. And age really is a number. His son has the capacity to do something that he simply cannot do, which is move on and forgive. And in terms of the boy, Butcher and their decision not to kill Homelander has had serious ramifications. And to make matters worse, Butcher only has a few months to live. Like that last shot of his forehead, like those veins moving around, I was like, this man is not long for this world at all. And to make matters worse, it seems like everyone on the team hates him. The only reason he's still part of the boys, which somebody in the series does mention is a terrible name, is because of Huey. Huey has become quite the little leader. And I think what makes Butcher very similar to Homelander is that he's not really capable of being part of a group. He always needs to be the one leading it or responsible for its success, which is why he's always going on these side projects and doing his own thing without really telling anyone. And one of those things was to try to make a deal with Victoria on her own. And although he doesn't go through with it, he's still trifling. And you can definitely feel Butcher's days are numbered because he's seeing his wife, which is the only individual that he's had any love for. We haven't really seen him have that type of connection with anyone besides maybe Huey. But short of that, ever since we last saw the boys, how do I put this? They seem exhausted. They seem a bit rusty. I think Victoria mentions, like, how is it that you guys got worse at their jobs? Like, they are not very good at controlling the narrative. Every idea or potion or concoction they create not only fails, but just continues to put them further at risk. And the one thing about Victoria that makes her very difficult to take down is she's not just a soup. Stanley trained her to be very politically savvy as well. Like, she is both street smarts and book smarts at the same time. It seems like she has her own little plants and little tripwires to notify her if or not someone is breathing down her neck. And from what I can tell of Victoria, she doesn't really have this ideology of like the soups need to be in charge. In fact, she desperately wants to keep it a secret because she wants to be judged like just as an individual. Like, she seems a bit worried about people finding this out. But it's going to be interesting to see how her perception of the public and of her supporters change if they ever find out about this. I think what makes Victoria so fascinating is because she's not all the way evil and she's not all the way good. She's just very smart in terms of self-preservation. She's managed to keep herself a secret for so long. And one of the reasons she injects her daughter with Compound V is to protect her. It's going to be interesting to see what she does when her back is against the wall and whether or not she warms up to this idea of soups being in charge of everything. In terms of the boys, the only win they seem to have is Starlight's defection. And as hard as she tries to make herself neutral and create this own identity. Starlight has become synonymous with this political movement, and even within her organization, there are people who really sympathize with Homelander and the Home Teamers. I think one of the issues that the boys are having is that they're unable to really keep control of a narrative that would threaten Homelander's power. Like anytime they get a lucky break, they're not really able to maintain it for very long. Like they're so fixated in destroying Homelander physically, but they haven't really been that focused in destroying Homelander's image. And as a result, he's always able to come up with these grand plans to take his image back. And I think Butcher said it the best, because Homelander literally lasered someone in broad daylight and people clapped for him. That alone, like, that's actually the threat. I really enjoyed this, like, these two political sides they were able to create this episode with the Starlighters and the Home Teamers. I just thought it was so effective in terms of highlighting Homelander's ability to always be like 10 steps ahead. Because the one thing Vought is very good at is propaganda and creating stories that people believe or want to believe. And so that's the one power that Homelander seems to have a firm grip on. So Homelander's trial, like, we don't really see much of it, but we know that he could care less. He's really just going through the motions. He's not feeling as happy as he thought he would being in this position. And you know that he's in a bad place when he's kind of gotten tired of torturing the Seven. Like when he tells Deep to blow A-Train, he almost looks indifferent. Like he's literally run out of ways to torture them. And in terms of the Seven, I mean, the members of the Seven are barely there. And at this point, they've kind of given up their power to Homelander. They feel there's nothing they can do. They're also desperately trying to maintain their own public image, which is just barely above water. Even though everyone is doing exactly what he wants them to do, he doesn't really feel like something's not clicking, right? Like he's not really feeling that surge of power that he thought he would be feeling. Like it's almost as if he wants their submission to come from an honest place. And so in order to try and figure out what's going on, he seeks help, in this case from a new character named Sister Sage. And I actually love the addition of Sister Sage. I felt like she added some much needed energy to this first episode. And I will give Homelander some credit. Like he will put his ego aside if it means self-preservation or if it means kind of taking one step forward. He's not a man that's easily flattered. One thing I noticed about this episode, and also in the previous seasons, is that we're starting to see Homelander in regular clothes, out, like not wearing his uniform. And I feel like this is very important because when he's in his uniform, he honestly looks indestructible. Like it's even hard to believe that uniform comes off. But watching him in his, I guess, snake-skinned underwear, in like jeans and a light jacket and a hat, like he looks like just a weak old man. I mean, not weak. He looks like just a regular man, human being, like not this indestructible monster. This scene with Sister Sage was probably my favorite. There's like a very quiet confidence about her. And I get the sense that she's not interested in, you know, good guys versus bad guys. She's more interested in self-preservation. And so when she meets Homelander, she reads him for filth. She's like, you are a desperate old man that's out here because he's basically going through a midlife crisis and he doesn't know where else to go. And she just reads him up and down, and he's looking at her like he didn't know whether to laser her or to like allow her to continue. I think the way Sister Sage has been presented to us, she's almost like a scientist. That's kind of how he lures her onto the team. He basically says, listen, do you want to be in this sad room by yourself, or do you want to put some of those ideas into practice? Sister Sage, in a lot of ways, is just as lonely and isolated as Homelander is. She spends all her days with books. I don't think she has any interactions outside of her room. And so in a way, they make the perfect pairing because neither one of them are able to connect to humans in a meaningful way. And what Sister Sage does is she gives him insight into maybe why he's feeling as depressed as he is. And all the power that Homelander has gained so far is it's not real power. It's kind of like social media, internet power. I think Homelander on a deep level knows that. Like the people making the real decisions that impact the world are not sitting around discussing commercials or who's going to be the next member of the Seven. They are in the White House. And Homelander has basically decided at this point that he wants to be the guy calling the big shots, the ones that can fundamentally alter the world as we know it. And he also wants to be that guy forever. You know, I think he's having this midlife crisis about aging, about being replaced. The older he gets, the more vulnerable he becomes. And it's only a matter of time before they either figure out a way to destroy him or someone more powerful comes along, like his son, to take him out. Now, towards the end of the episode, like, I'm not going to lie, even though we know that Homelander is a monster, for some reason, it still takes me by surprise. So they come up with this grand plan to lure their biggest fans to this, like, meet and greet. And then they bash their heads in. Like, I was not expecting that. I mean, I kind of was, but I also kind of wasn't. And I thought it was very telling that A-Train just wasn't able to go through with it. And I also think it's going to be very interesting to see how much longer the Seven can kind of go on doing all of Homelander's, like, terrible biddings. Because the members of the Seven have never been, let's just face it, like, they're not exactly innocent either. However, even they have limits. To no one's surprise, Homelander is found innocent. And Sister Sage, like, the way she started those riots, like, you could tell that she was so excited to finally basically get her head out of the books and put these theories into practice. And what nailed the coffin are these bodies. And I thought this decision to frame the Starlighters for killing Homelander's most devoted fans was so brilliant. In order for Homelander to get the type of power that he wants, he needs the system to break in order to create a new one. And for that to happen, he needs a way to justify doing it. And there's no better way than senseless violence. Look what the Starlighters did. If we don't change the law, if we don't change the way we're doing things, this country is going straight to hell. And so the way Homelander is always able to keep control of the narrative and kind of psychologically control people is honestly masterful. The episode ends with the boys in shambles. And shout out to the boys. I mean, I feel like they were struggling this episode. Any information they got was, like, kind of by luck or by chance. So hopefully they regroup in the next episode. So I think the series does a great job of balancing the storyline, but also adding to each of their characters. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Huey's mother, who she is, why she left them. We find out that Black Noir has been replaced. We don't know who is in the suit, but I guess that's something that will be revealed later on. And how Butcher's sort of paranoia is going to start to affect the way he operates. Overall, a smashing good first episode. Knowing that it's the season before last is exciting because they have an ending in mind. And so you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.